hello, and welcome to... What? Don't do the accent. Oh, okay, well, let me just... Okay. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Greta Myers. Is that my real name? No, it doesn't matter. Okay, I, Greta, am here to tell you a story. As you can see and hear, I'm very invested in this idea of telling you a story. I'm wearing a cloak, cape, thing, whatever you want to call it. It's cool. So if story is the name of the game that we are playing, and you're willing to play along by finding out what happens next, and by, playing by the rules of this story that I'm here to tell you and have made up in some parts. If you're willing to do that, you may be wondering, what kind of story is she going to tell me? She looks so crazy. Welcome to Greta's Grimoire. What do you mean Grimoire is a type of spell book? No, I didn't know that. No, of course not. I wasn't planning on bespelling my viewers. I'm not a witch, I promise. I'm not here to bespell you. Unless with a good story and this wit and charm I have here. Wit, charm, witch. Look, guys. I know it looks bad. I'm not a witch. I promise. Okay, moving on. Apparently I'm all out of sorts. Okay, here's the deal. This is Greta's Grimoire with 2 M's. Because this grimoire is full of grim, capital G, material. Because I'm reading and discussing grim fairy tales. No, that wasn't me trying to be funny. I was trying to be clever. Well, I've said it twice now. Greta's Grimoire. 3rd time's the charm. Not a magical charm. So, we can't go back on it now. It's set in proverbial YouTube viewer stone. Moving on. Okay. Here's the thing. We're stuck here obeying our oaths of solitude until the blight has been purged from the land, which sounds a lot cooler than I'm stuck at home because we're in quarantine. And it's just got me thinking about all the stories I would be telling and all the things I'd be doing if I wasn't, at home. Fulfilling my oath of solitude. And so it got me thinking about stories. And while this one has been cool and fun and interesting and all that, I'm kind of waiting for it to end. Hopefully with this happily ever after. And I got thinking about happily ever afters and how kids know what happily ever after is. It's so ingrained in our culture that a child will tell you they didn't like a story because it didn't have a happily ever after. And not that I necessarily disagree with them. I love me a good and they lived happily ever after and rode off into the sunset. I like me a good story like that. It got me thinking, where did it start? And how did it get ingrained in us so young? And so I went back to what I consider to be the root of happily ever afters, grim fairy tales. And as I was so forced to mention earlier, that is what my goal here is to read some grim fairy tales out loud. Maybe analyze it, maybe discuss it. If we're feeling fancy. Guess we'll see what happens. And so then I decided, if I go through with this crazy project, and if you're seeing this on YouTube, which you hopefully are, then I decided to at least go through with the beginning of this project. If I decided to do a long-term project, then I wanted to see how much of the days of my Oath of Solitude, or just in general, because Grimm Fairy Tales are cool, I could fill up with this book specifically. Because I got it as a present, and I've been obsessed with it ever since. And, like, do you blame me? Like, it's so pretty. It's so pretty, and I love it. So, there are 201 fairy tales in the book, and there's an extra 10 children's legends, as they're called, and a really neat and fascinating introduction in the book. And so that altogether would make 212 days. And so if we subtract that from the days in a year, that would be 100, and if we subtract Sundays, for obvious reasons to me personally, because I don't plan on filming on Sunday, that would, if I did my math right, leave us with 101 days left in the year for me to fill with something else. And if I decided to do, say, Saturday specials, oh, you didn't think that one was dumb? And did something different and fun and cool on that day, I'd have, if I did my math right, which is a possibility, and it's also not a possibility, it's Schrodinger's possibility. I probably misused that, I'm sorry. With me to fill with something else that I will figure out shortly. No, I wasn't planning on writing a spell book. No, that's not what I was talking about. So let's use this introduction, no matter how out of sorts it might be, to start in with the really cool introduction. It's got like 8 pages, and it's like I would be doing some commentary on top. What do you mean we're running out of time? Clock. You're right. Let me just... Okay, so there's really, really cool things that I could have told you if I wasn't, so out of sorts in the beginning. Like, how Wilhelm and Jacob Grimm were left to care for their family at a young age, and, like, the stepmother stereotype. That's really cool. I'm definitely going to have to talk about that later, because it's very fascinating, to me at least. No. Okay. The most important thing that I need to get my point across, just for my sake, is that these were intended to be children's tales. They were originally called Kinder- und Hausmärchen. I'm sorry, that not my best accent. As you can tell, I'm not German at all. I'm sorry. Anyways, meaning children's and house tales. So, many of you are probably like, what? I heard Grimm tales were, like, super sketchy and, like, gory and bloody and definitely not, like, PG, happy for kids and good stuff like that. And, well, okay, there are some of them that are gory. Otherwise the stereotype wouldn't exist. Most of the part, they're just weird by today's standards, as I'm hoping to get into depth and debunk and discuss with maybe just myself talking to a camera. But the point is that each of them has the common theme that no matter what, for the most part, some of them are told in a more fabulaic, it's a word now, nature, that good conquers all, not just evil, but that it can get through some tough times, and if you're good and virtuous and righteous, good things will happen to you. This was, as talked about in the introduction, Jacob and Wilhelm grew up in a very troubled Germany, and it wasn't even really Germany, it was like Germany, United States, but the states were all like countries, and anyways, and so that led for some troubled times, kind of like, in a different way, the times we're facing right now. And so people like Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm were trying really hard to unite and bring peace to the world, actually, and not just Germany. And so they were hoping for a brighter and better future, so they wrote these tales to try and teach children and households alike, which was the basic structure of what was just a very small, crazy, ruled, there was almost no, the government was crazy and just very disorganized, and so households were very important. And so these were meant to be told in households and to children, so that the idea of being unified and working for a common goal and just being good and trying to work for something good and good things would happen, so that it could be told to children so that they could learn this at a young age and hope for a better future. And so, while we are not trying to unite separate country states or just living in the times that they lived in, which are pretty different from ours, the idea of teaching children that good conquers all has dated back for centuries. And so while we're here, waiting for our oaths of solitude to end, I'm hoping that we can unite and come together and explore these fairy tales, these children's tales, and enjoy some of the happily ever afters here together and work for good conquering all. So, here's to hoping that I can get a post out a day. If not, I will try to update you guys, but that's just not gonna happen. So, tune in, maybe, for the rest of the week for the Frog King, more commonly known as the Frog Prince, less commonly known as Iron Henry. Assuming I remembered right. Cat and Mouse in Partnership, Our Lady's Child, a story that fascinates me, the story of the youth who went forth to learn what fear was, and our first Saturday special where I will be, this week, sharing more about the introduction in my analysis and commentary and stuff that I was unable to do today. And so with that, this episode has reached its happily ever after. Turn the page to learn more.